Hi, I'm James Kotecki. You're here with me in the C-Space studio at CES 2020. Joining us, Lizzie Widhelm, SVP Ad Innovation, Pandora. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So you merged with SiriusXM. Pandora and SiriusXM merged in the last year since the last CES, and so that's had about a year to kind of percolate. What does that mean? What does that mean for your team?
Yeah, it's meant a lot of things. I mean, first and foremost, we're focused on bringing new content to the consumer. SiriusXM has spent decades building out a treasure trove of amazing talent, and we're bringing the likes of Howard Stern and Kevin Hart, and then new faces and voices like LeBron James and Drake and U2 onto the Pandora platform to drive engagement and drive time spent. So it's been really fun.
But you work primarily on the Pandora side.
Yep.
And the idea is to keep those brands separate, right?
Yeah.
The brands are separate and people interact with them in different ways.
Absolutely. We believe that SiriusXM and its amazing subscription offering and its control and ownership of the car combined with Pandora, the mobile powerhouse, and the best in personalization will live independently and reach consumers at different times and offer, of course, different forms of audio entertainment. But together we're the leader in audio entertainment. So it's a really compelling offering to the consumer.
So let's talk ad innovation, which is right there in your title. What does ad innovation mean at Pandora? What are the latest innovations in advertising?
Yeah, I love my role at the company and specifically at CES because I spend all of my time focused on the listener and understanding the changing listener behavior on our platform and then contextualizing that for advertisers, building new products, bringing best practices to them in terms of creativity and what an audio ad should sound like on all of these devices. So it's connecting the advertiser to the consumer and innovating with the listener first.
Is there a single best practice you can think of that might surprise people? Like, here's something that people always do that they should never do when they're thinking about an ad for Pandora?
Yes, absolutely. Don't take your terrestrial radio ad and bring it into the streaming environment.
And why is that?
It just doesn't complement the experience. Pandora is focused on personalization. We always know the best next song that you should hear. We also have great data on your technographic behavior, your life stage, presence of children, where you're at in the day. And so a one-size-fits-all creative approach, why would you ever do that? You're not going to get the attention you want, you're not going to get the relevance you want, and you're definitely not going to get the enjoyment from the listener.
So if I'm an advertiser, does that mean that I need to be creating 10, 50, 100 different kind of versions of my message to kind of fit with all those different niches?
No, absolutely not. And part of innovation that we've worked on is the ability for dynamic creative to be built for advertisers. So we spent the last year working with many marketers to take that best practice, which is try to be as personalized as you can, try to understand your listener, and then building technology to do so effortlessly and efficiently. So they're not sitting for weeks on end, in a creative brainstorm trying to figure out, oh my gosh, how am I going to make this personalization thing that Pandora has told me is a best practice work?
But this is not like dynamic text, right, where you can just insert someone's name or someone's location and just kind of swap it out Mad Lib style. Maybe you can do some of that, but if you're doing that in an audio format, of course we all have had the experience of calling a phone number and it says a very robotic voice and it sounds very artificial, and it's obvious that things have just been inserted kind of robotically, and I assume it basically can't be that.
No, it doesn't sound like that. So a good example, we're in Las Vegas. We actually work with Visit Las Vegas, and they are very interested in, of course, making sure that they're marketing to specific cities, making sure that they're marketing to foodies versus people that love pop music, and then integrating some of those messages into their creative. So we can take signals that we have. We have the power of the logged in user. It's a huge advantage for us. So we do know your age, your gender, what you like to listen to, where you live, and those behaviors help then shape that ad. So for them, it's not about saying, Lizzie, come to Las Vegas. It's like, hey, LA listener, it's sunny in Las Vegas and, rainy in California, and you love Gwen Stefani, and she has a residency at Planet Hollywood, and that's a good example of sort of taking my behavior, but not making it so personalized that it's creepy and weird and sounds robotic.
That's exactly where I was going. So the creepiness factor, if you had said to me a couple years ago that that you'd be able to do that, I might be asking about that. But I wonder, like, are consumers, have they kind of gotten over that now? Or is everybody kind of understanding that this level of targeting is possible and maybe even desirable, from the consumer perspective as well?
Yeah, I think the tide is turning. Obviously, there's a lot of thrash and discussion around privacy, but at the end of the day, we're really focused on giving value back to the listener in exchange for that data, right? We have an ad product that does just that, where they can lean in to get content from us behind the paywall, and that we serve video up to them and make that targeted based on what they're getting, or this example of dynamic audio creative. And look, at the end of the day, it makes their experience with us more enjoyable if it does feel like it fits their mood, their lifestyle, their identity. So again, I think you have to do it right, and you have to be very mindful about using the right signals and understanding how advertisers can benefit, and that exchange, if done correctly, can work really well.
And can people pay for a subscription to get a totally ad-free experience?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm really proud of the work we do. We are largely ad supported between Pandora and SoundCloud, which is another great platform that we represent. We're reaching over 100 million Americans through ads, and they're not churning to a subscription product because we've annoyed them. And I'm really proud of that because we're doing something right.
How much more targeted can ads actually become? At this point, are we starting to reach a plateau or like an asymptotic line, so to speak, when we look at the graph about how close to targeting we can possibly get for an individual?
I think that in terms of that initial ad, advertisers are really pretty good now about understanding their consumers. I think where you'll see innovation is they move through the funnel and think about what is the sequencing of storytelling that I'm giving to the listener in our case. I think there's innovation there. We're actually working on a lot of testing around voice and trying to understand, how targeted do we need to be in order to hit someone at that right moment where a voice is maybe more appropriate. So again, I think it's using that signal data to anticipate the modality or the call to action or the specific nature of what you want that consumer to do, and less so about trying to dig into their life and really understand much more than we know about them today.
I'm talking to Lizzie Widhelm of Pandora. What is the latest on voice? What are you learning, and what are you still curious about and you're still learning?
Yeah, so we've been testing for about 7 months with voice mode, which is just the ability to interact with Pandora using your voice to navigate through the service. And then as that scaled, we've been spending about the last 3 months testing with advertisers. And the initial takeaway is be fun and give utility. So an example might be a dryer sheets ad, and instead of just telling them more and more about the dryer sheet that they already understand, give them tips about how to use the dryer sheet that they didn't know. So say, would you like tips on how to use dryer sheets, yes or no, and make it really simple. At this point, we're just asking for yes or no, and we're just essentially unlocking more storytelling through that next phase of that audio ad. And I love that because it's, again, not asking them to immediately put it in your cart. Would you like to add this to your cart? No, but adding tips, entertaining them. We have a lot of good examples that listeners seem to be loving.
When Pandora first came out, I remember listening to it on a desktop computer.
You're that old.
Because I am, and because it was kind of a new cool thing. And then obviously mobile exploded, and I assume that's where the vast majority of people are engaging with Pandora. But so much of what you do is obviously based on the underlying gear, the underlying technology that enables all these platforms to happen. We're here at CES. Is there some kind of gear, some kind of equipment on the horizon that you think could be another one of those ways that fundamentally shape people's relationship to Pandora?
Yeah, I think 2 things. So we've seen 100% year-over-year growth for connected devices in the home, right? And everybody's here talking about 5G. That will enable more devices, especially screenless devices, to easily connect, and that's really good for us. It allows us to increase time spent with listeners. It allows listeners to bring music into places in their life or spoken word where they normally wouldn't, like in the case of the mobile device. So I think there's a huge opportunity this year for us to see another inflection point in terms of growth, because a lot of the devices we're seeing really do favor audio and the power of audio.
Could we have one of those devices like in the movie Her, where there's like an earbud and Joaquin Phoenix is just listening to that all day? Do you feel like that ultimately could be something that replaces screens in people's lives, just an all audio interface with their device?
I don't know. I think we have to see voice as a habit, because for a lot of those use cases, you do need voice to work seamlessly and have listeners, consumers, be really comfortable with voice. We've seen voice move a lot, voice search, Kids are only voice texting, a lot of
Yes.
that growth we're seeing. So I think it's going to be a minute before you have that comfort level and frankly the technology that gives back a really rewarding experience to the listener or to the consumer, whether you're on a different platform. But I don't know if we're going to be seeing her, this
Okay.
year.
One more question for you as we close out. I like to ask this question. 2020 is the year to stop blank and start blank.
Oh gosh. Is this a personal question?
It can be whatever way you want to take it.
Okay. 2020 is the year to stop interrupting and start. No, I don't like that.
That was great. I liked where that was going. Stop interrupting and start integrating.
No, maybe like
Trying to use eyes.
I know. I was trying alliteration. No, stop taking value and start giving value back. How about that?
I love
So
it.
2020 is the year to stop taking value from customers and start giving value back.
Well, I really appreciate you being here to share that, Lizzie Widhelm, SVP Ad Innovation, Pandora. Thank you so much for being with us in the C-Space studio. And thank you so much for joining us here at CES 2020. I'm James Kotecki, the host of the C-Space studio. Keep it right here because more great conversations are just ahead.